drawing near virtuous friends, and let's look at the initial verse. Be upright in mind and pure in intentions. Then obviously, because we are not enlightened beings, and much have we tried, and especially for us, we are still householders. We go to work, socialize, so on and so forth. And obviously, the conditions that we live in are quite different from that on monastic. So we got to be mindful on the conditions we are in. And more so for us, carefully choose virtuous friends who benefit your own virtue. I'm sure you all come across this. Let go of harmful friends and be careful not to draw near them. Firmly guard kind thoughts and never harbor evil ones. So obviously, friends, this is the circle of influence that we're in. And in a circle of friends, they will influence us whether you like it or not. And that's why we need to understand the condition of our own practice. Sometimes you can choose a condition, sometimes you cannot, because if there are certain conditions that is there, nothing you can do about it. It's part of circumstantial karmic retribution. And as much as you may want to force it, one become meddlesome, and as a result, which become quarrelsome and become troublesome. So we need to understand. So making friends is so important for our spiritual practice and cultivating the field of our mind. Obviously, this arose from the Brahmin practitioner who asked the Buddha, and so I don't need to go through it, but I think the important thing to know is it says that how do you identify a virtuous friend? Say, look at the moon. What about a harmful friend? Look at the moon. So the lesson to learn here is the moon goes from full moon to darkness. So essentially, everyone intrinsically had a bright and a pure without nature. And because they are influenced by external conditions, then pure nature is covered in darkness. So that's us, because even not much that we try to pursue the Dharma, we also need to understand that we still in darkness. So important thing is that how we then illuminate ourselves. So starting with a small flame, we're going to grow in that flame so that we can grow in wisdom learning. And if you want to reflect back in your life, have you come across such friends? I mean, for myself, sure. I mean, I do. I mean, when I was 17 years old, I left for UK. I stayed in a hostel in London. I did my A-levels there. And you know what? In my hostel room, I was offered heroin. I was offered drugs. But this is the part that you're upholding your virtues, and you know that person is like that. And so you keep your distance, but at the same time, you can't fight against them. You just knowing that there's such a person and stay away from those bad influences. And obviously, when I send my children overseas, obviously knowing that I've been on that road before, and my son come and tell me she was also offered, and so you can understand how youngsters can easily influence to go into drugs. And I used to tell my friends and those who ask about how do I handle this, and I say you have to give your children the wings to fly, and but more importantly is that give them the roots, cultivate the roots for them to come back, and also for the reason to stay. So this is the world we are living in right now, especially in Dharma degenerating age. And you don't have to look very far. You pick up the newspaper, read the news, what is going on right now, and the top news is going on right now. And there is always a fight between the forces of darkness and the forces of light. So we must wholeheartedly and earnestly cultivate the views of our mind. So we must take care of our minds. We must befriend those virtuous people who benefit us. Now, Vinaya is a beneficial cure in maintaining purity and self-respect. Cautiously guard against against making harmful friends to control our mistaken behavior. So what is this Vinaya? Vinaya, obviously today we know it very clearly as the monastic rules and the Buddha's disciple. If you remember some lessons ago, and the Master gave the story of when the Buddha went to the visited back to the palace. You got the cousins and uncles who are kings on their own in their own kingdom. They then took refuge in Buddha and even joined the monastic. But think about, he has to bow to one person who was of a very low caste, and that was Upala. Upala was a barber, and so you remember Upala. So Upala was the upholder of Vinaya rules. Okay, so you have foremost disciple who uphold that. So in a monastic, they are being guarded by these Vinaya rules. But for us, what about for us as householders? We just asked to take the 5 precepts. So in Tzu Chi, we have 10 precepts, added another 5 in there. And so some of which include don't participate in politics and demonstration, do not chew bitterness, do not gamble, do not speculate, and so on and so forth. But more to that is that it's our life. So a life that flows here, because they have that wisdom to be able to make the right decision. And the biggest power that we have as a human being is the power to choose. And that choice decide whether it's a foolish choice or a wise choice. So we must remain pure to prevent ourselves from making harmful friends. Whatever happened to us, whatever consequences, is purely our own decision. The own decision includes no decision. So we cannot blame others because our minds cannot be settled. We cannot distinguish between right and wrong. So sometimes we make mistakes. And more importantly, is the mistakes that we made, we must learn from them and grow from them. But worst thing is to make the same mistake twice. And that's being foolish in our ways. But sometimes we are foolish. I am foolish. I can make the same mistake twice. So therefore, there's nobody else to blame except ourselves for the mistakes we made. So the lessons learned from this is to cultivate the voice of our practice. We must distance ourselves from all evil and deviant views and draw near virtuous friends. Through the power of great vehicle vows, with our bodhisattvas as our victorious friends, we accumulate no afflictions, nor dilute karma internally, and force no evil demons, nor evil karmic condition externally. So this is us cultivating internally and externally, and to cultivate this, we need to grow in our consciousness. Why do we need to grow our consciousness? Because when our life flows, imagine you're in like a river. You're going to meet rapids, you're going to face waterfalls, and you're going to be part of rapids, you're going to be part of the water, and those are the conditions we have in our life. So therefore, if we just remain as we are, even though we listen to the Dharma, at best, we are on our 6th consciousness, which is our mind consciousness. We will be part of the rapid, you are part of the waterfall, and they will consume you. This rapids and the waterfall will consume you, and unless you rise above that, then that is why we myself have said in the past that is a conditioned practice. So grow towards unconditioned practice, and that is what it is. So in this last lesson that Master Rona, and I draw this up in my last lesson learned, is the annex of Confucius. The Master said, in a group of 3, I will find my teacher. When I see someone who does good, I follow suit. When someone makes mistakes, I correct my own. So therefore, if we see, that's why there is a teaching that says that if you see a shortcoming in anyone, you see your own reflection. So when we see a good example, we must follow it. we see a bad one, you must raise our awareness. What do you mean by raising awareness? Is our consciousness. So when I say awareness, is when you raise a consciousness awareness, is to understand your inner being. When you raise your consciousness or mindfulness, you understand your outer being. And this is what it is here, no affliction. So how does this affliction arise? It's spark of a thought. So that is our inner being, okay? And then in your outer being, and that's when you manifest how you interact with people. So let me share this contemplation with you all. And it reflects in some ways to this, but not so much of this harmful. I mean, for you all, I think identifying harmful friends, especially when growing up, that's important. But now that you're all grown up and we are working and so on and so forth and hard work, I thought this will be useful. Material friends materialize you, and spiritual friends spiritualize you. I shared this to a Tzu Chi Singapore last weekend. So I thought this is useful. So as a householder in practice, we have both groups of friends, and that's what we are. At the beginning, you have more material friends. Isn't that the case when we start working? Even when after I retire, I still have a lot of material friends. As you progress, you may have equal number of material and spiritual friends. As one who has taken on committed practice, you have many more spiritual friends and just a handful of material friends. This being so, because you are no longer interested in materiality of power, position, and wealth. When you are sincere and pure in your practice, you will attract spiritual friends naturally. So if you were to reflect back in this journey that you have in your life so far, when you started, isn't that the case? So, I mean, for me, it's been quite obvious, and my spiritual friends obviously started to grow when I was still in my 20s. And so because, as you know, I started many years ago. But obviously, by that time, even though the spiritual friends were growing and we talk a lot about wisdom of spirituality at that time in my 20s. But the mature friends overwhelmed me. And because I was building my career. And that was the way the worldly convention works. That over time, obviously today, if you look back, and that's why in a practice, it's very, very important you have a spiritual family to get along with your practice. Relationship. Understand the discerning factors for a good practice. And these different discerning factors for a good practice, more often than not, it comes from the merits of your past deeds. So look around your family and friends. How many are in the spiritual journey? Very rare, isn't it? These discerning factors are earned from the practice of the past life, and in the present, that will enable you to evolve in the future. So therefore, much like we also look at our spiritual friends and so on and so forth, but there's some conditions you are in, and you have to live in those conditions, and you cultivate practice in those conditions. And that is the one that you have to strengthen your resolve in your internal cultivation. So they are there, understand, they are there to help you in a spiritual progress. Whether those, when it comes to those circumstantial karmic retribution and nothing you can do to change your condition, they are there for a purpose. And more often than not, you understand, you can see that they are there to help you in a spiritual progress. Okay, thank you.
Gan En, thank you so much, brother Chin, for another